Despite in the grand scheme of things only having a couple weeks until Call of Duty World War II officially releases, that being the total of 12 weeks until the launch, while that might not seem like much, there's still in the game files of Black Ops 3 a decent amount of camos we've yet to see in Black Ops 3. So in this one, I want to take a deeper look and discuss a little bit about the possible outcomes for how these will be distributed, if at all, and when we can see maybe the potential time frame of them, because it's been something that we've talked about a couple of times here on the channel about showcasing them and everything, but when would they actually come? So that said, the camos that we've talked about a couple of times once again here up on the channel already, we've already showcased them, so if you guys want to check those out, of course, you can search them up on the channel or something like that, but I'll put a little recap of each screenshot up on screen right now so you have a quick little refresher of it. But once again, a handful of these camos have yet to be put into Black Ops 3, and most of them do end up having menu information. And for those of you guys that know how that kind of stuff works, menu information simply grants the camo the ability to be placed on weapons as if you were using a user interface and a straight up select camo option from your create a class menu. Whereas the alternative, if you did not have menu information for these camos, you'd have to go in and forcibly put the asset onto the camo itself by manipulating the game code. And so therefore, once again, this little trigger of being able to go into a menu and select it, that's all in place for a lot of these camos, which means that it's game ready. It's just a matter of when. But on top of thinking about when we could end up seeing it, it then brings up the splits of how we could see it. Because camos that we've seen as DLC in Black Ops 3 have been put out in two different formats thus far. These limited edition camos, or whatever you want to call them, these extra additional ones that we seemingly get for actually free, or in some cases not necessarily. Some being in community contracts and others being limited time rare editions of camos in supply drops that are only there for about 7 to 10 to 14 days or something like that. So the first schism here within this ends up being, which format would it be? Would it be a community contract or would it be a supply drop camo? And if we follow a little bit of a pattern that we've seen previously, right now the next one up on the due up list is actually a community contract. We just saw the Cherry Fizz camo out of supply drops, then before that we had the Cosmic camo as a community contract, then we had Into the Void, which is a supply drop camo. The only camo that does not follow that little pattern of being community contract versus supply drop versus community contract versus supply drop is actually the Bloody Valentine camo, the first limited edition camo that we had. That was then followed up the next month by the Luck of the Irish camo, which was then in a supply drop, and then that started the chain of supply drop to community contract to supply drop, and so on and so forth. But regardless of how they are distributed, it still is a really interesting portion to take a look at just how many there are and how little time there is left within Black Ops 3. And when you take a look at the release time frame and schedules for everything, there's honestly not enough time anymore to release all of these in a standard format that we've normally seen, unless we double up or quadruple up like we've seen previously with some community contract rewards. Whereas we got calling cards before and then say the prize fighters afterwards, this could then be, I guess, something where we have multiple tiers of a community contract and we knock off 4 right then and there. And then that could potentially lead up into either another supply drop camo or another contract at that to clear out the board and the rest of those camos that are still in the game files within Black Ops 3 during its current life cycle. Once again, we have 12 weeks left, but even though there's still just under 10 camos hidden in those files, that doesn't mean that we might end up seeing all of those in individual contracts, because we've yet to see ever a weekly consistent basis in which we've gotten a community contract or a DLC exclusive camo, that kind of stuff. There's always intervals in between, and the very bare minimum that Activision does is about 2 weeks time. So the very earliest that you'll see is a community contract getting completed or a supply drop camo ending, and then 2 weeks later we end up getting something. That's usually about where this falls in terms of the time frames of everything. But when we talk about these intervals, we also have to keep in mind that Black Ops 3 is not the only active title at the moment. We still have Modern Warfare Remastered and Infinite Warfare as well, and though Modern Warfare Remastered seemingly is done with all of its content, what we do have to consider also, though, is that there's still Infinite Warfare DLC coming out. And we also have to consider the World War II beta, which is going to take up 2 weekends entirely. So those weeks, they're not going to market anything for those weeks leading up to that in terms of the Monday through Thursday before that weekend starts for the beta. So next week, it's going to be limited once again with the beta, because it's probably going to be a little bit of press coverage, all kinds of different stuff like that leading up into it. And next week might actually be one of the best weeks to do it if they were to in the next couple of weeks, though that probably won't happen. This is the next and only open week for about a month's time. After that, starting on the 25th, that Friday, once again with the Monday to Thursday completely empty, that's going to be a week solely for the beta. The following week as well, which is 3 weeks away now, is again another beta weekend. 4 weeks is probably going to be when DLC 4 is, and maybe even week 5 after this point, around the 11th or 18th. Those two I'd leave open for DLC 4. But after that, once again, we're getting really far into the year here at this point. At that point, we're almost at October, which only leaves, once again, a few weeks left before the launch of World War II. And at that point, well then of course the full focus is on World War II and the launch there within, and making sure the game is just pushed out to the community as best as possible. So that said, really, when you look at it, we only have about, say, 5 weeks or so in which we have open time frames and time windows in which these community contracts or supply drop camos could be released. And once again, with under 10 of them left, it's just interesting to see how many there are versus how little time there is left. Unless Black Ops 3 is actually not ending just yet. And now this is gonna sound really weird, but if you saw yesterday's video, we touched on the idea of it being very odd going from 3 very active titles in terms of content to down to 1 with Call of Duty World War II. And so, what if some of these camos are reserved to bleed over into World War II? It wouldn't be the first time that we saw some content come out from a previously released title as a new title came out already. We saw that with Black Ops 3. Advanced Warfare kept releasing some DLC weapons, I think until I believe January of the year in which Black Ops 3 was the prominent title, that being last January. So this kind of thing would be possible, and it could happen in those terms in which we end up seeing very small, minute DLC coming to Black Ops 3. But again, I don't know if that would necessarily happen, because this would then be the final year in which Treyarch has to finalize everything they need for their game in 2018, the theoretical Black Ops 4, though it probably won't be called that. But while there is still so much to do on that end, a couple of DLC camos are about pennies to $1 compared to the developmental process required for them. So, is it possible? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen? I don't know, but one very prominent option here that I don't necessarily like to think about because I've seen these camos and they're really awesome. The other option is they just won't be released at all. Some of them will be lost to time, some of these will be cut camos completely, and ones that were so close but just never ended up happening. Of course, this stuff happens every so often, and of course, you couldn't go in any single game without finding cut content. I mean, I do a bunch of series here up on the channel showcasing cut content that people never saw because I find that stuff super fascinating. But even when you take a look at, say, like Black Ops 2, there was a handful of camos that never made it into the full game. Any game will have that kind of thing happen. So it's very possible that though we have these ones so close to being released, they might just not ever make it. But the way that I end up seeing it, if we do end up getting them at all, it'll be within one of these short periods of windows of time that we have coming up. Once again, this upcoming week maybe being one of them, but then after that, I don't see anything until after Infinite Warfare DLC 4, the middle of September, and maybe end of September, early October. At that point, it then becomes a matter of really only selecting the best ones out of that, and we probably won't see all that many, but unless we end up seeing, say, a community contract of 4 camos, I don't know how much we'll be seeing of all of these, because once again, there's a lot here and not a lot of time unless it carries over. But all that said and out of the way, once again, just reiterating, this is all complete and sheer speculation, just educated guesses, and of course, some information to get a little discussion going. So that said, that's where we're gonna wrap it up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. What do you guys think of these camos? Firstly, do you wanna see any of them return into Black Ops 3? Do you wanna see them added in as DLC? And then off of that, what way do you want them to be introduced? Personally, I'd really like the community contract simply because you're guaranteed that at that point. You don't have to open up any drops or test your RNG luck, and you're just guaranteed one of these awesome camos. And I think with a community contract, you have the chance of knocking out a few more and getting those out to the general public, whereas a supply drop camo might only be 1 per 10 days or so. With that said, let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Of course, if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel as well, make sure you guys subscribe to stay updated with everything we have here regarding Black Ops 3, both multiplayer and zombies. Call of Duty World War II, we're gonna be killing it with the beta just around the corner. I have so much stuff planned here for you guys. I think you guys definitely will enjoy as well. Modern Warfare Mastered, Infinite Warfare, software, all that good stuff. We got you covered here up on the channel. So if you guys enjoy any of that, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a beat. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that is the best place to get connected outside of YouTube, but practically live on Twitter. So if you guys want to check up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But thank you all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Hopefully you guys on a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Take care and peace.